Hi, this is Karen O'Brien, and I have a tech support question about comparing the differences between two projects. So I'm going to show a couple of the methods here on how to compare differences between two projects. Oh, sorry. And what I have is two different projects. This project has a breach, and the breach through this dam is prescribed breach with the horizontal rate of breach is 10 feet per hour and the maximum breach width is 100 feet. And then this breach is the maximum horizontal breach rate is 50 feet per hour and the maximum breach width is 500 feet. And so what I'm going to do is just compare these two projects. So the easiest way to compare them is visually. So I'm going to show you that a couple of things, like if I want to compare these two. Now what I've done is I've loaded these two models and I've set their colors. So if you don't know how to do that, just go look at the mapping, anything related to mapping. The mapping playlist and the crayfish will show you how to set the colors and define the colors for specific depths. And then once you get the color set for one, you can just click and copy the style and then click and paste the style on the other one and it'll set the colors exactly the same. It'll set the two styles between the two layers exactly the same. So that just makes it a lot easier for you, because when you're comparing data, you definitely want like the styles to be the same. So let's take a quick look at this one. But this one, like if you were to compare the maximums on both of these, they would be really close to the same because the maximum upstream depth is going to be close to the same. But what we're comparing is how quickly this drains. And so what we want is time variable depth. So if I click on this frame and I click on this frame, my time controller is the same for both of them. So if I get up here kind of to the max as things are just starting to breach and move downstream, the breach rate at the beginning is quite different. So if I look at the two, I should expect to see more water draining out of this one faster. And it's kind of hard to tell that because, hang on, first of all, let me get the velocity vectors off of this one real quick, because yeah, that might make it a little easier. Okay, so see what we're seeing here is that this one here has, oh, that one has the stupid velocity vectors on too. Hang on a sec. Let me grab those off too. Yeah, let's focus on depths, not velocities. Okay, so this one here should have the 10 feet per hour should have darker blues and deeper depths at this specific frame rate, at this specific frame. And this one, the 500 foot, should have more water flowing faster at this specific frame rate. Now if we move down to 2 hours, so here's 2 hours, and we're going to compare them again, and we see that this one has shallower depths at this time than this one does. Okay, now we'll do that again. Let's go down another hour or two. So now you see this one's really starting to drain. Let's see what this one has done. And this one has really started to drain. So you see the differences in the depths along here. So that's a visual comparison using the time controller to see what's happening over time. And these changes are relatively subtle, but that's quite a bit of difference there. But they're relatively subtle because, I mean, it's still basically controlled flow through this breach. which would be the same as controlled flow through two different culvert alternates, or maybe a controlled flow with different sized inlets. The differences will be subtle, but this is differences versus time. Now let's talk a little bit about like differences of the project. Let's get these guys out of here now. Differences of the project based on one project minus another project. So the maximums upstream of the levee are both exactly the same, so they have zero difference. And the maximums downstream, this is the comparison of the maximum of the 10-foot run minus the maximum of the 10 foot per hour minus the 50 foot per hour. And these are the differences. And so what I've done with these is I've done something slightly different because I have positive and negative values. So for the positive values, that means that this one is high. That means that the 10 foot is higher than the 50 foot per hour. The 10 foot per hour is higher than the 50 foot per hour in these colors. So it looks like when you like let this flow out slower, you slow and you kind of constrict it, that it allows for more inundation over here because the water is probably getting stalling and being able to fill out these areas because it may be on here a little bit longer. If you're letting it out faster, I don't know, to be honest with you, it seems a little backwards, but whatever, you know, it is what it is. But if you look at these values where the majority of the maximum depths, the 50 foot per hour is higher because these values are negative, which is, I don't know if that's what we expect or not because, you know, our change is way back up in here, so who knows what's going to happen down in here. But the total area of inundation is typically dependent upon the volume, not the rate. That's why these values are so low. That's why the changes in these depths are so minor. So that total volume down here is really more dependent on, is a little bit more dependent on the flood wave, or the volume of the event rather than like the flood wave progression. Because it's just going to fill up every kind of like little hole that it can find. But if you're releasing it faster, it looks like it is coming down into these areas like with a little bit more oomph and filling them up a little bit more higher depth. So it's interesting, but let me show you how I get this. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken my my two projects. This one is the 10 feet per hour, and this one is the 50 feet per hour. And I have opened that up and I have run this program called Maxplot. So if you don't have Maxplot, you got to go get it from the Flow2D Pro folder. So C drive program files x86 Flow2D Pro, go copy it and paste it in here. And then you double click it to run it. Yours is not going to look like this because I'm using the one from the new build 22 that has the two-phase flow build into it. So you're not going to see this. So we are going to compare the maximum flow depths. Well, you can map stuff with this quickly and do visual comparisons, or you can compare two files. So I'm going to compare, let's make sure we're in the export. We're going to compare the maximum depth to this is the 50, so this is the 10 foot per hour, this is the 50 foot per hour, and to the maximum depth from that one, click open, and that is your difference file. And as you can see, it's these values are kind of useless because the changes are so small, so you don't get much of a picture here. But if you let me click close, if you go to the difference file, you'll see that it is exactly the same configuration as all the other files, right? We've got the depth fp.out is grid element, x coordinate, y coordinate, and the value. And the final depth.out, same thing, grid element, x coordinate, y coordinate, and the value. So we have Sorry, let me delete that one and get out of the way because it keeps messing me up. So we have this one, difference.out. And what I did is I did this already, so in order to map it. And so what I did is I named it 100 foot max width minus 500 foot max width. Or this is the 10 foot per hour minus the 50 foot per hour. And then I pulled that here so that I could plot it. So that's easy. You just grab this and you set it to that. I'm going to set it to that file. And this is important. File format is custom delimiter and space. And the records and field options, there's no header on this data. There's no field names. There's no ability to detect field types, so we'll trim the fields and discard the empties. Then we're done with that. Then this one is X coordinate is field 2, Y coordinate is field 3. And this needs to be set to the project coordinate system, which you can see down here. And then you just click add. But of course I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. Then once you get on this guy, this is the delimited text. It comes in, it looks a lot different than this. So then you have to start, fixing up the numbers. So the first thing I do is I select, well, if it's on single, the first thing I do is select this and I turn this to no pen. And then I turn this to that and this to the size of your project. So this is your grid element size and this is map units. And then you change that from single symbology to graduated. And you'll choose your field, which in this case, I don't know why it's not allowing me to choose my field from the drop-down menu. So I have to put my field in there manually, which you probably aren't going to have to do that. So open quotation marks, FIELD _ 4, field 4, close quotation marks. And that's a double quotation marks because it's a field. Single quotation mark represents text. A double quotation mark represents a field. And let's change the color to, I think I was using turbo because it has a spectrum and it's pretty bright and vivid. And then we will click, let's do classify. And as you can see, this is completely useless. So let's maybe do equal interval. That's a little better. And then we can just set these. So this one's fine. This one, it needs to go, well, this one's fine. We need to set the middle color to 0. Okay, so this is 0.001, except that's should be negative. And the upper value should be 0.001. So that'll kind of get rid of the small differences that we don't care about. And we'll uncheck those, because like I said, we don't care about them. And then this one goes, the differences at 0.001 to 0.002, and then so you could put this to whatever you want, but I mean these are only 0.05 feet difference, so it doesn't really matter to change them. But if you wanted to make this 0.03, that would be fine. It wouldn't hurt anything. Honestly, doesn't really make that big of a difference. And then you click, well, you don't have to click anything because here's your difference map. So that's it. That's how you compare differences between two projects. So I'll close this video down and post it as soon as I can.